Tonight, step off the bright midway of 1893 and into a quieter corridor. Gaslight humming, wallpaper the colour of nicotine, a door that only locks from the outside. Drop your city and time zone in the comments. I love seeing where you're all tuning in from around the world. Now dim those lights, maybe light a candle for that gentle amber glow, and let's walk together through the shadowy corridors of America's first serial killer hotel. You step off the train at Union Station, your leather suitcase heavy in your hand, the smell of coal smoke and horse manure thick in the Chicago air. It's May 1893, and the World's Columbian Exposition has transformed this prairie city into something that feels like stepping into tomorrow. Electric lights buzz overhead like captured lightning, and the distant sound of construction hammers echoes through streets packed with visitors from every corner of America. You're here for the fair, just like the other 27 million people who'll flood Chicago this summer. Your savings account back home in Kansas is a little lighter, but this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to see the future. The white city gleams in the distance, its neoclassical buildings rising like something from a dream. But first, you need somewhere to stay. That's when you notice the advertisement in the Chicago Tribune, printed in neat black letters that seem almost too good to be true. World's Fair Hotel, elegant accommodations, reasonable rates, H. Holmes, proprietor. The address is perfect, just a few blocks from the fairgrounds on 63rd and Wallace, close enough to walk, far enough to escape the crowds when you need rest. You hail a cab, the horse's hooves clicking against cobblestones still damp from an afternoon shower. The driver, a man with tobacco-stained fingers and suspicious eyes, glances at the address you've written on a scrap of paper. For just a moment, something flickers across his face. Concern, fear, but it passes quickly, replaced by the practiced indifference of someone who's seen too much of this city's dark corners. The hotel rises before you like a monument to prosperity. 3 stories of red brick and limestone, bay windows catching the last golden rays of sunlight. It's exactly what you'd expect from Chicago's new money elite. Grand enough to impress, practical enough to house the flood of fair visitors. The sign hanging above the entrance reads H. Holmes Pharmacy on the ground floor, with World's Fair Hotel emblazoned above it in gold lettering that reflects the gaslight like tiny flames. You push through the heavy oak doors, and immediately the outside world's cacophony fades to a muffled whisper. The lobby smells of fresh varnish and something else, something sweet and cloying that reminds you of the funeral parlour back home. Persian rugs muffle your footsteps, and electric chandeliers cast everything in a warm, inviting glow. It's modern, luxurious, and surprisingly quiet for a hotel in the middle of Chicago's busiest district. Behind the mahogany reception desk stands the proprietor himself. H. Holmes is exactly what you'd picture when someone says successful businessman. Tall, well-dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, with carefully waxed moustache and blue eyes that seem to take in every detail of your appearance in a single glance. His smile is warm, practiced, the kind that makes you feel like the most important person in the room. "Welcome to my establishment," he says, his voice cultured, reassuring. "You're here for the fair, I presume?" His handshake is firm, confident. Everything about him screams respectability, success, the American dream made flesh. You've chosen the perfect time to visit our magnificent city. He slides the guest register across the polished wood surface, the leather-bound book thick with signatures from visitors who've come before you. Names from Iowa, Minnesota, California, young women mostly, judging by the handwriting. Secretaries, shopgirls, teachers who've saved their pennies for this adventure, just like you. As you sign your name with the hotel's fountain pen, Holmes studies you with those penetrating blue eyes. "Will you be staying long?" he asks, and there's something in his tone that makes you look up from the register. He's still smiling, still the perfect host, but for just an instant you catch something else in his expression. Calculation, appraisal, like a butcher examining a side of beef. The moment passes so quickly you almost think you imagined it. Holmes is already reaching for a brass key, ornate and heavy in his palm. "Room 316, he announces cheerfully. "One of our finest accommodations. 3rd floor, excellent view of the city. I think you'll find it quite memorable." You follow Holmes up the grand staircase, your footsteps echoing in the eerily quiet hallway. The carpet beneath your feet is thick Persian wool, the kind that costs more than most people make in a year. Gas lamps flicker along the walls at regular intervals. casting dancing shadows that make the floral wallpaper seem to writhe and move. It's beautiful, expensive, and somehow wrong in a way you can't quite put your finger on. I designed much of this building myself, Holmes mentions casually as you climb. His voice carries that note of pride every architect gets when showing off their work. Every detail carefully planned for the comfort and convenience of our guests. There's something about the way he says convenience that makes your skin crawl, like he's sharing a private joke you're not in on. The second floor hallway stretches longer than it should, given the building's exterior dimensions. Doors line both sides at irregular intervals, some close together, others separated by expanses of bare wall that make no architectural sense. Room numbers seem random: 201, 203, 209, 217. You count 12 doors, but the building shouldn't have space for the more than 8 rooms this size. Interesting layout, you comment, trying to make conversation. Holmes chuckles, a sound like ice clinking in expensive whiskey. I believe in maximizing space. Waste not, want not, as they say. His hand rests on the brass banister as you continue climbing, and you notice his fingers are unusually long, almost delicate. Artist's hands, or surgeon's hands. Each room is designed to meet specific requirements. The third floor is darker, the gas lamps spaced further apart. The silence up here feels different, heavier, more complete. It's the kind of quiet you find in places where sounds go to die. Your room is at the end of the hall, past doors that bear no numbers at all, just smooth, dark wood that seems to absorb light rather than reflect it. Holmes slides the key into the lock with practiced ease. The mechanism clicks with a sound like breaking bones. Here we are, he announces, pushing the door open with theatrical flourish. You're home away from home. The room takes your breath away, and not in a good way. It's gorgeous, certainly. High ceiling, tall windows that would normally flood the space with light. Elegant furniture that belongs in a millionaire's mansion. A 4-poster bed with silk curtains. An ornate writing desk. A wardrobe large enough to hide a body. But something about the proportions feels off, like looking at a beautiful painting where the perspective doesn't quite work. You step inside and immediately notice the air feels different. Thicker. It tastes metallic on your tongue, like you're breathing through copper pennies. The windows, you realise, don't open. They're painted shut, or perhaps sealed from the outside. Decorative, not functional. The room has electric lights, 3 bulbs and crystal fixtures that cast strange shadows in corners that seem deeper than they should be. The architect who designed this clearly valued privacy, Holmes explains, noting your examination of the sealed windows. Sometimes guests prefer discretion, away from prying eyes. His smile hasn't wavered once since you met him, but now it seems more like a mask than an expression. You notice the doorknob on the inside of the room. It's there, certainly, but when you glance back at Holmes, his hand is casually resting near what looks like a second lock, one that can only be operated from the hallway. Your heart skips a beat, but you tell yourself you're being paranoid. This is 1893 Chicago, not some penny dreadful horror story. Will there be anything else you need? Holmes asks, stepping back into the hallway. Dinner, perhaps. I know an excellent restaurant nearby that delivers very private dining experience. You shake your head, suddenly eager to be alone with your thoughts. No, thank you. I think I'll just rest and explore the fair tomorrow. Of course, Holmes nods approvingly. Though I should mention, we ask that guests remain in their rooms after 10 o'clock. Hotel policy. The fair brings all sorts of unsavoury characters to Chicago, and we can't be too careful about security. His blue eyes lock onto yours for just a moment too long. Sleep well, sweet dreams. The door closes with a soft click, followed immediately by a second sound, metal sliding against metal. You test the doorknob, and your blood turns to ice water in your veins. It turns freely, but the door doesn't budge. From somewhere in the walls around you comes a sound like distant breathing, rhythmic and mechanical. Gas hissing through pipes, you tell yourself. Just the building's heating system. But as you sit on the edge of that magnificent bed, listening to the strange acoustics of your beautiful prison, you begin to understand that you're not just a guest at the World's Fair Hotel. You're an ingredient in whatever recipe H. Holmes has been perfecting in this architectural nightmare he calls home. You spend the first hour testing every surface of your room like a cat in a new house, running your hands along the wallpaper, tapping the floorboards, examining every inch of those sealed windows. The walls feel solid enough, but when you press your ear against the flowered paper, you hear something that makes your breath catch in your throat. Voices, muffled, distant, but definitely human. Other guests, you tell yourself, just other guests in adjoining rooms, except the voices sound wrong, too quiet, too desperate. And when you listen closer, you realise they're not having conversations. They're pleading. The grandfather clock in the corner chimes 9 o'clock, his deep bronze notes vibrating through the floorboards and up into your bones. You've been trapped. No, that's too dramatic a word. You've been secured in your room for 3 hours now. The electric lights flicker occasionally, casting the ornate furniture in alternating pools of light and shadow that make everything look like a stage set for a play about wealthy people going insane. You try the door again, knowing it's futile but unable to stop yourself. The knob turns smoothly in your palm, brass worn soft by countless hands, but the door itself might as well be part of the wall. From the hallway beyond comes the sound of footsteps, measured, purposeful, accompanied by the soft whisper of fabric against wood. Holmes making his evening rounds, checking on his collection. That's when you notice the small grate near the floor, almost hidden behind the heavy drapes. Air circulation, obviously. Even sealed rooms need ventilation. But as you kneel beside it, you smell something that makes your stomach clench with primitive fear. Sweet and thick, like overripe fruit mixed with the metallic scent of old pennies. It's coming from somewhere below, rising through whatever ventilation system Holmes has installed in his architectural maze. The building creaks around you like a ship in rough seas, but these aren't the random settling sounds of normal construction. They're rhythmic, purposeful, machinery. You press your ear to the floor and hear it more clearly. The whisper of pulleys, the soft thud of counterweights, the hiss of gas flowing through hidden pipes. This isn't just a hotel, it's a machine, and you're starting to understand what kind of product it manufactures. 10 o'clock arrives with the clock's solemn chiming, and immediately you hear new sounds in the hallway. Multiple sets of footsteps, moving with practiced stealth. Holmes isn't alone anymore. Voices drift through your door, too quiet to make out words, but clear enough to recognise the tone. Business discussion. Practical conversations about practical matters, the kind of mundane talk that accompanies any specialised trade. You remember something from your train ride to Chicago, a newspaper article you'd skimmed about missing persons, young women mostly, who'd come to the city for the fair and simply vanished. The reporter had interviewed families from across the Midwest, all telling variations of the same story. Their daughters, sisters, wives had written letters home about their excitement for the World's Fair, about the nice hotel they'd found, about the charming proprietor who made them feel so welcome. Then nothing. No more letters, no forwarding addresses, no trace except for a handful of personal belongings that occasionally turned up in pawn shops across the city. At the time, you'd thought it was just the usual urban hysteria. Small-town newspapers making big city crime seem more sinister than it really was. Chicago was growing faster than its police force could handle. People disappeared in places like that. It was sad but not supernatural. But now, listening to the mechanical breathing of this building, smelling that sweet rot drifting up through the ventilation system, you understand that some disappearances aren't accidents, they're harvests. The footsteps pause outside your door. You hear Holmes's cultured voice clearer now. This one will need at least another day. The preparation process can't be rushed. Another voice responds, gravelly and practical. The lime's ready when you are, and the furnace has been cleaned. Lime. Your mind immediately goes to agriculture, but some part of your memory dredges up a darker association. Lime isn't just for crops, it's for decomposition, for breaking down organic matter quickly, cleanly, without the mess and smell that usually accompanies decay. It's what smart people use when they need to make something disappear completely. The furnace comment doesn't bear thinking about. You back away from the door and sit heavily on the silk-covered chair beside the writing desk. The hotel stationery rests there, cream-coloured paper embossed with Holmes's name and the hotel's address in elegant script. For a wild moment you consider writing a letter home, leaving some record of where you are and what you've discovered. But even if you could get it out of this room, who would believe such an impossible story? Besides, you're probably overreacting. This is 1893, America, the age of progress and electric lights and world's fairs. Men like Holmes are businessmen, not monsters. The sounds you're hearing have reasonable explanations. The smells are probably just the building's plumbing, maybe problems with the gas lines. The voices could be discussing anything, hotel maintenance, supply deliveries, completely innocent matters that only sound sinister because fear is making you paranoid. But as the clock strikes 11 and the building settles into its deepest quiet, you can't shake the feeling that you've stumbled into something much darker than a simple hotel stay. Tomorrow you'll demand to be let out, cite some emergency that requires your immediate departure. Holmes seems like a reasonable businessman. Surely he won't force a guest to stay against their will. The grandfather clock ticks away the minutes until midnight, each second bringing you closer to whatever Holmes has planned for his carefully collected guests. You wake to the sound of muffled sobbing somewhere behind the flowered wallpaper, though you can't tell if it's been going on for minutes or hours. The grandfather clock shows 3 a.m, its brass pendulum catching the electric light like a hypnotist's watch. Your room feels smaller than it did yesterday, as if the walls have crept closer while you slept, and there's a new smell in the air, something sweet and medicinal that reminds you of the dentist's office back home. The crying stops abruptly, replaced by what sounds like furniture being dragged across a wooden floor. Heavy pieces, judging by the groaning of floorboards that weren't designed to handle such weight. You press your ear to the wall and catch fragments of conversation drifting through the building's ventilation system. A man's voice, cultured and familiar, Holmes, certainly, discussing what sounds like measurements. 5 feet 6 inches, approximately 130 pounds. Auburn hair, the clinical precision of his tone makes your skin crawl. Another voice responds, gravelly and practical. The lime will handle the rest, give it 3 days. There's that word again, lime. Your mind keeps returning to agriculture, but some darker instinct suggests a more sinister application. You remember reading somewhere that lime isn't just for farming, it's for breaking things down, making them disappear completely without the mess and smell that usually accompanies decay. From somewhere in the building's depths comes a sound that stops your breath entirely. The mechanical wheeze of machinery starting up, bellows pumping air, gears turning with the rhythm of a giant clock, and underneath it all, the whoosh of flames being fed by forced air. A furnace certainly, but running at 3 a.m. when no hotel guests would need heat. The timing feels deliberate, purposeful, timed for when the city sleeps and no one asks questions about unusual sounds or smells. You test the door again, knowing it's futile but unable to stop yourself. The brass knob turns smoothly, but the door remains as immovable as a bank vault. Through the keyhole you can see a sliver of gaslit hallway, and occasionally shadows pass by, tall figures moving with the measured pace of men conducting business. Holmes making his rounds, checking his inventory, ensuring everything runs according to his carefully planned schedule. The sound of footsteps pauses outside your door. You hold your breath and back away from the entrance, though there's nowhere to hide in this elegant prison. Through the thin gap beneath the door, you see the wavering light of a candle or lantern. Someone breathing on the other side, listening, perhaps counting. The footsteps resume, moving down the hall with that same mechanical precision. You return to the small air grate near the floor, that opening you discovered yesterday. The sweet medicinal smell is stronger here, mixed with something else. The metallic scent of old pennies and the cloying odour of flowers left too long in stagnant water. It's coming from below, rising through whatever ventilation system Holmes has installed throughout this architectural maze. As you kneel beside the grate, you hear something that makes your heart stop. Another voice, female this time, speaking in barely audible whispers. "Please," she's saying, "I have money. My family will pay whatever you want." The words drift up through the building's hidden passages like smoke, carrying with them a desperation that makes your stomach clench with primitive fear. Holmes's voice responds, still maintaining that awful clinical tone. "I'm afraid that's not how it works, my dear. This is a matter of efficiency, not economics." The woman's pleading grows more frantic, but her words become indistinct, muffled as if by a distance or perhaps by something covering her mouth. The conversation ends abruptly, followed by the sound of a door slamming shut. Then silence, complete and awful, broken only by the mechanical breathing of the building around you. You realise with growing horror that you're not the only guest who's discovered the true nature of the World's Fair Hotel. Others have come before you, drawn by the same newspaper advertisements, the same promise of elegant accommodations near the fairgrounds. You think about the guest register you'd signed so innocently yesterday, that thick leather-bound book filled with names and signatures. Young women from Iowa, Minnesota, California, secretaries, shop girls, teachers who'd saved their pennies for this adventure. Just like you, all of them drawn to Chicago by the promise of wonder and progress, all of them ending up in this beautifully appointed nightmare. The building settles around you with its strange, purposeful creaks and sighs. Somewhere in the walls, machinery continues to operate with the efficiency of a well-oiled factory, and you begin to understand that you haven't stumbled into a simple hotel. You've become part of an inventory, a carefully managed resource in whatever twisted business Holmes has perfected in this architectural monument to the American dream. Morning light filters through your sealed windows, but it feels wrong somehow, too pale, too filtered, as if it's passing through something other than glass. You've been awake since dawn, listening to the building come alive around you with sounds that have nothing to do with normal hotel operations. Footsteps in corridors that shouldn't exist, the whisper of pulleys and counterweights, and occasionally the soft thud of something heavy being moved through hidden passages. At 8 o'clock sharp, a tray appears in your room through a slot you hadn't noticed before, cleverly concealed behind a decorative panel that slides open with mechanical precision. The breakfast is elegant. Perfectly prepared eggs Benedict, fresh fruit, coffee that actually smells decent. It's exactly what you'd expect from a high-class establishment, except for one detail that makes your blood run cold. The silver tray bears an engraving. Property of H. Holmes, architect of efficiency. The food tastes like ashes in your mouth. Not because it's poorly prepared, quite the opposite. It's delicieux, clearly made by someone with genuine culinary skill. But you can't shake the feeling that you're being fattened like a prize pig, maintained in comfort while Holmes finalises whatever plans he has for his carefully collected guests. The phrase architect of efficiency keeps echoing in your mind. What kind of efficiency requires lime, furnaces, and soundproof rooms? As you pick at your breakfast, you notice new details about your room that you'd missed in yesterday's initial shock. The beautiful Persian carpet has small stains that could be wine, or could be something else entirely. The elegant writing desk has scratches on its surface, as if someone had clawed at it desperately. Most disturbing of all, you discover tiny holes drilled through the walls at regular intervals, too small to see through, but perfectly sized for gas lines. The realization hits you like ice water in your veins. This isn't just a prison, it's a laboratory. Holmes has turned the World's Fair Hotel into a testing ground for the perfect murder, and you're his latest experimental subject. The sealed windows, the hidden ventilation system, the mechanical precision of everything, it's all designed to control every aspect of your environment, including when and how you breathe your last breath. You try to stay calm, to think rationally about your situation. Holmes is a businessman after all. There has to be some logic to his operations, some pattern you can understand and exploit. But as the morning progresses, you begin to grasp the horrifying scope of his enterprise. This isn't a crime of passion or a random act of violence. It's industrialized murder, conducted with the same methodical efficiency that built Chicago's stockyards and steel mills. Through the walls, you hear the sounds of other operations beginning their daily routine. Doors opening and closing in sequence. Like a factory whistle calling workers to their stations, the building's furnace roars to life with renewed vigour, and that sweet medicinal smell grows stronger. Somewhere in the depths of the hotel, Holmes is conducting his business with the casual professionalism of any other successful entrepreneur. The terrible truth begins to crystallise in your mind. You've walked into the first modern murder factory, a place where death has been streamlined, mechanised and turned into a profitable enterprise. Holmes isn't just killing people, he's perfecting the process, refining his methods with each new victim until he's created something unprecedented in criminal history. You remember reading about the marvels on display at the World's Fair, Edison's electric lights, Bell's telephone, the great Ferris wheel that lifts visitors high above the city. All of them represent progress, innovation, the triumph of human ingenuity. But here in this elegant hotel, just blocks away from those wonders, that same innovative spirit has been twisted into something monstrous. Holmes has applied the principles of modern manufacturing to murder, creating a killing machine disguised as a respectable business. The grandfather clock chimes 9 o'clock, and with it comes the sound of new footsteps in the corridor. Someone whistling a cheerful tune. Holmes making his morning rounds, checking on his inventory like any good businessman. The tune is familiar, something you heard at the fair yesterday. It seems obscene, hearing that innocent melody in this place of calculated horror. As the whistling fades down the hallway, you realise with growing desperation that you need to find a way out of this room, out of this building, before you become another entry in Holmes's ledger of efficient murders. But the door remains locked, the windows sealed, and somewhere in the walls around you, the machinery of death continues its patient work. The afternoon brings a visitor you've been dreading since yesterday. Holmes himself appears in your doorway without warning, having unlocked your door with the silent efficiency of a practiced hotel manager. He's dressed impeccably as always, fresh collar, perfectly waxed moustache, those penetrating blue eyes that seem to catalogue every detail of your appearance. In his hands he carries a leather portfolio and what looks like a medical bag. "Good afternoon," he says with that same warm smile that had welcomed you yesterday. "Trust you're finding your accommodation satisfactory?" There's genuine courtesy in his voice, as if you're having a perfectly normal conversation about hotel amenities rather than your impending murder. The disconnect between his pleasant manner and your terrifying situation makes everything feel surreal, like a fever dream where social pleasantries continue even as the world crumbles around you. He settles into the chair beside your writing desk with the casual air of a businessman conducting a routine meeting. The portfolio opens to reveal neat columns of figures, dates, and what appear to be detailed measurements. Your stomach lurches as you realise you're looking at Holmes's business records, a carefully maintained ledger of his human inventory. "I hope you don't mind," he continues, "but I need to update my records. Standard procedure, you understand." He produces a measuring tape from his medical bag with the same professional competence a tailor might show when fitting a suit. Height, weight, general physical condition, it's all part of maintaining proper documentation. You want to scream, to fight, to demand an explanation, but something in Holmes's manner keeps you frozen in place. He conducts his measurements with clinical detachment, noting the results in his ledger with a fountain pen that scratches across the paper like tiny bones breaking. The whole process takes perhaps 5 minutes, during which he maintains a steady stream of pleasant conversation about the weather and the impressive attendance at the World's Fair. "Remarkable turnout this year," he observes while noting your height. 27 million visitors expected by the fair's end. Chicago has truly outdone itself. The casual way he discusses the crowds makes your skin crawl. All those people, all those potential customers for his terrible business. The World's Fair isn't just bringing tourists to the city, it's bringing them directly to his door. As he works, Holmes explains his operations with the pride of any successful entrepreneur. The hotel, he reveals, generates income from multiple revenue streams. There's the obvious hospitality business, room rates, meals, various services, but the real profits come from what he calls secondary markets. Insurance fraud when guests happen to carry policies. Valuable personal effects that can be discreetly sold through his network of contacts. And then there are the specialised services he provides to certain medical institutions. You don't want to understand what he means by medical institutions, but the implications are horrifyingly clear. In an age when medical schools struggle to obtain cadavers for study, Holmes has solved that supply problem with typical American ingenuity. He's not just murdering people, he's selling their bodies to hospitals and universities across the Midwest. His vertical integration applied to homicide, maximising profit from every aspect of the operation. The beauty of the system, he explains while updating his ledger, lies in its efficiency. No waste, no unnecessary complications. Each guest contributes to the enterprise in multiple ways. His tone is exactly what you'd expect from a successful businessman discussing quarterly profits with potential investors. The casual pride in his voice makes everything infinitely more terrifying than if he was simply a raving madman. He closes the portfolio and returns his measuring tools to the medical bag with practiced efficiency. "I think that concludes our business for today," he announces, rising from the chair with the same courteous manner he'd shown when you first checked in. "I trust you'll continue to find your stay enlightening." The door closes behind him with that same soft click, followed immediately by the mechanical slide of the exterior lock. You're alone again, with the knowledge that you're not a guest at all. Your inventory in the world's first murder factory, waiting to be processed according to Holmes's carefully refined procedures. Outside your sealed windows, the sounds of Chicago continue, horse hooves on cobblestones, the distant whistle of trains bringing more visitors to the World's Fair, the cheerful chaos of a city celebrating its own progress and prosperity. But here in room 316 of the World's Fair Hotel, you've discovered the dark side of American innovation, where the same entrepreneurial spirit that built the modern world has been applied to the ancient art of murder. The next morning brings an unexpected revelation when Holmes returns to your room, this time carrying rolled architectural drawings under his arm. He spreads them across your writing desk with the enthusiasm of a proud architect showing off his latest commission. The blueprints reveal the World's Fair Hotel in cross-section, and what you see makes your blood turn to ice water in your veins. "I designed every inch of this building myself," Holmes explains with obvious pride, running his finger along the detailed drawings. 3 years of careful planning, you understand, each room serves a specific purpose in the overall operation. The blueprints show a structure that bears no resemblance to any normal hotel. Instead, you're looking at what amounts to a 3-dimensional maze designed for one purpose: the efficient disposal of human beings. The basement level is a nightmare of intersecting chambers, each marked with clinical precision. Cremation facility, acid bath, dissection room, storage vault. The ground floor, where Holmes operates his pharmacy, contains hidden trap doors that connect to chutes leading directly to the basement. Even the elegant lobby you'd admire 2 days ago reveals itself as part of the killing apparatus, positioned to provide Holmes with clear sight lines to monitor anyone entering or leaving the building. Your own floor, the 3rd level, appears on the blueprint as a collection of specialized chambers. Some rooms are marked standard accommodation, but others bear more ominous labels: gas chamber, soundproof vault, observation deck. Your room 316 is identified simply as processing unit number 7. The casual way Holmes has reduced human murder to industrial terminology makes everything infinitely more horrifying than simple violence. The ventilation system reveals itself as perhaps the most diabolical aspect of the design. Holmes has installed a network of pipes that can deliver gas to any room in the building with the turn of a valve. The sweet medicinal smell you've been detecting isn't just seeping through the walls, it's being deliberately pumped into your room through hidden nozzles concealed behind the decorative mouldings. The beauty of the system, Holmes continues, pointing to various mechanical components on the blueprints, lies in its adaptability. Different guests require different approaches, you see. Some prefer the quiet dignity of asphyxiation. Others benefit from a more direct intervention. He indicates a series of chambers equipped with what appear to be furnace connections, rooms where the walls can be heated to lethal temperatures at the flip of a switch. The building's strange acoustics suddenly make perfect sense. Holmes has installed a network of speaking tubes that allow him to monitor conversations throughout the hotel from his office on the 2nd floor. Every word you've spoken since checking in has been catalogued, analysed, added to his understanding of your psychology and probable resistance to his methods. Even the beautiful Persian rugs and elegant furniture serve dual purposes in Holmes's design. The heavy carpets muffle sounds that might alarm other guests or attract attention from the street. The ornate wardrobe in your room, you now realise, is positioned to block any attempt to barricade the door. Every decorative element has been chosen for its contribution to the hotel's primary function: the invisible, efficient murder of its guests. Holmes rolls up the blueprints with obvious satisfaction. "I've been thinking of publishing a paper on the subject," he mentions casually. "The application of modern architectural principles to specialized business operations. I believe there is a market for such innovations, particularly as our cities continue to grow." The idea that he might spread his methods to other entrepreneurs makes your stomach lurch with horror. The World's Fair Hotel isn't just a murder site, it's a prototype. Holmes has created a template for industrialized killing that could be replicated anywhere ambitious businessmen recognize the profit potential in human disposal. In an age when Americans pride themselves on an innovation and efficiency, he's applied those same principles to create something unprecedented in criminal history. As he prepares to leave, Holmes pauses at the door with that same courteous smile that has haunted your nightmares since arriving. "I do hope you appreciate the craftsmanship involved," he says, So few people truly understand the elegance of well-designed systems. The door closes behind him with mechanical precision, leaving you alone with the knowledge that you're trapped inside a machine specifically designed to kill you. Through your sealed windows, you can see the white buildings of the World's Fair gleaming in the afternoon sun, their neoclassical facades promising a future of endless progress and prosperity. The irony isn't lost on you. Chicago celebrating mankind's greatest achievements while just blocks away, those same innovations are being used to perfect the art of murder. The Gilded Age has produced marvels beyond imagination, but it's also created monsters like Holmes, who see human life as just another commodity to be processed efficiently. Holmes returns later that day with what appears to be a tour group, well-dressed businessmen who examine his blueprints with the same analytical attention they might give to a new steel mill design. You listen in growing horror as he explains his methods to these potential investors, describing his murder factory with the casual professionalism of any successful entrepreneur pitching a profitable venture. The key insight, Holmes explains to his guests, is recognizing murder as a business opportunity rather than a simple crime. The traditional approach, crime of passion, random violence, generates no sustainable revenue. But when you apply modern business principles to homicide, extraordinary profits become possible. His audience nods approvingly, taking notes in leather portfolios identical to the one Holmes carries. One visitor, a portly man with gold watch chain gleaming across his vest, inquires about startup costs. Holmes responds with detailed financial projections that would make any banker proud. Initial investment in specialized equipment, projected return on investment, anticipated profit margins broken down by victim category. Young women from out of town, he explains, generate the highest returns due to their insurance policies and the value of their personal effects in secondary markets. The conversation moves to scalability. Could Holmes's methods be adapted to other cities, other markets? New York, he suggests, offers tremendous opportunities given its immigrant population and transient workforce. San Francisco could be particularly profitable, with all those gold rush fortunes creating wealthy targets. The casual way they discuss expanding the murder business across America makes you want to vomit. Another investor asks about quality control. How does Holmes ensure consistent results while minimizing risk of discovery? The answer reveals the full sophistication of his operation. Each victim undergoes careful screening to ensure they won't be missed immediately. Preference goes to the visitors from out-of-state people travelling alone, individuals whose disappearance won't trigger immediate investigation by local authorities. Holmes has even developed customer service protocols for his murder business. Victims are maintained in comfort during their final days, fed well, treated courteously, allowed to believe they're simply experiencing minor inconveniences. This approach, he explains, reduces stress and makes the final stages more manageable. Happy customers are easier to dispose of than frightened ones. The financial records Holmes shares with his visitors paint a picture of remarkable profitability. World's Fair Hotel generates more income from its secondary operations than from traditional hospitality services. Insurance payouts alone have netted tens of thousands of dollars over the past 2 years. Add in the sale of personal effects, the medical school contracts, and various other revenue streams, and Holmes has created one of Chicago's most successful businesses. As the tour group prepares to leave, they shake hands with Holmes like respected colleagues closing a successful business meeting. Several exchange cards and promise to contact him about potential partnerships. The idea that Holmes's methods might spread to other cities, other entrepreneurs, creates a vision of American capitalism turned monstrous, a network of murder factories disguised as respectable businesses. After his guests depart, Holmes stops by your room one final time that evening. "I wanted to thank you," he says with genuine warmth, "for being such an excellent demonstration subject. My investors were quite impressed with the facility's capabilities." The casual way he refers to you as a demonstration subject rather than a human being encapsulates everything horrifying about his approach to murder. You realize that you've become part of something larger than a simple criminal enterprise. You're witnessing the birth of the industrialized death, the application of modern business methods to humanity's oldest crime. In an age when Americans pride themselves on innovation and efficiency, Holmes has created the ultimate expression of those values, a murder machine disguised as progress itself. The fourth day of your imprisonment brings the most horrifying revelation yet. Holmes arrives with what appears to be a medical colleague, a thin man in a dark suit who examines you with the clinical detachment of a physician studying an interesting case. Their conversation reveals the final piece of Holmes's business model, the aspect that transforms simple murder into something approaching industrial manufacturing. Dr. Chappell, as Holmes introduces his associate, represents a consortium of medical schools across the Midwest. The demand for anatomical specimens, he explains, far exceeds the legal supply available through normal channels. Medical education is expanding rapidly in America, but the number of unclaimed bodies available for dissection remains limited. Holmes has solved this supply shortage with typical entrepreneurial innovation. The preservation process is quite sophisticated, Holmes explains while Dr. Chappell examines his equipment. We've moved beyond simple formaldehyde solutions to more advanced chemical treatments. The specimens maintain their educational value while remaining stable for extended shipping periods. The casual way they discuss human bodies as specimens and educational materials makes your skin crawl. The basement laboratory, which Holmes describes with obvious pride, contains apparatus that wouldn't look out of place in any modern medical facility. Dissection tables with proper drainage, chemical baths for tissue preservation, even a specialized furnace for reducing organic matter to ash when complete disposal becomes necessary. Every aspect has been designed for maximum efficiency with minimal waste. Dr. Chappell is particularly impressed with Holmes's record-keeping system. Each specimen is carefully documented: age, sex, physical condition, cause of death, preservation method employed. The paperwork trail allows medical schools to maintain plausible deniability about the source of their anatomical materials while ensuring consistent quality and timely delivery. It's supply chain management applied to human murder. The financial arrangements are equally systematic. Medical schools pay premium prices for quality specimens delivered with proper documentation and preservation. Holmes has negotiated exclusive contracts with institutions in Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, and Wisconsin. The demand is so consistent that he's begun planning production schedules, specific numbers of victims needed to meet quarterly delivery commitments. Holmes even demonstrates his quality control procedures. Each specimen undergoes thorough examination before processing to ensure it meets medical school requirements. Physical defects, diseases, or damage that might reduce educational value are carefully noted. Premium specimens, young, healthy individuals with intact organ systems, command the highest prices from the most prestigious institutions. The conversation turns to expansion possibilities. Dr. Chappell suggests that similar operations could be profitable in other major cities where medical education is growing rapidly. New York's medical schools are particularly underserved, he notes, and would pay substantial premiums for reliable specimen suppliers. The prospect of a nationwide network of murder for medical supply operations makes you want to scream. Perhaps most horrifying is the casual way they discuss their work as a public service. Medical education requires cadavers, they argue, and their operation ensures that demand is met efficiently. The alternative, shortages that limit medical training, would ultimately cost more lives than their business claims. They've convinced themselves that mass murder serves the greater good of advancing medical science. As Dr. Chappell prepares to leave, he and Holmes shake hands like respected business partners completing a successful transaction. The doctor promises to send updated delivery schedules for the coming semester, and mentions that several prestigious Eastern medical schools have expressed interest in joining their supply network. Holmes beams with the pride of any successful entrepreneur expanding into new markets. After Dr. Chappell departs, Holmes turns to you with that same pleasant smile that has haunted your nightmares since arriving. "I do hope you understand the significance of what you've witnessed," he says. "This isn't mere murder, it's the future of American enterprise applied to humanity's most fundamental challenges. The idea that mass killing represents the future of American business makes everything infinitely more terrifying. You're no longer just a victim of a serial killer. You've become raw material in the world's first industrialized murder operation, a business model that transforms human lives into medical supplies with the same efficiency other factories turn cattle into beef or lumber into furniture. In the land of the free and the home of the brave, entrepreneurial spirit has created a monster." On your 5th morning in captivity, Holmes brings an unexpected guest. A well-dressed woman who examines you with the calculating gaze of someone appraising livestock. She introduces herself as Mrs. Pitezel, and her presence adds a disturbing new dimension to your understanding of Holmes's operation. This isn't a lone madman's crusade, it's a family business with multiple participants and complex internal dynamics. Mrs. Pitezel moves through your room like your experienced appraiser, noting the quality of your clothing, the condition of your teeth, the overall state of your health. She carries a small leather notebook where she records observations in neat handwriting, occasionally asking Holmes questions about your background and circumstances. The professional nature of her examination makes clear that this isn't her first time evaluating Holmes's inventory. This one should fetch premium pricing, she announces after completing her assessment. Young, healthy, well-educated, the Eastern medical schools prefer specimens with these characteristics. The casual way she discusses your market value while you're sitting 3 feet away reveals the complete dehumanization that makes Holmes's business possible. You've become a commodity to be processed and sold. Their conversation reveals the sophisticated network Holmes has built around his murder factory. Mrs. Pitezel manages the insurance fraud aspects of the operation, helping identify victims with substantial policies that can be collected after their convenient deaths. She maintains relationships with corrupt officials who provide death certificates without asking uncomfortable questions about circumstances or timing. Holmes explains his customer acquisition strategy with the pride of any successful salesman. The World's Fair provides an endless stream of potential victims, young people travelling alone, far from family and friends, attracted to Chicago by the promise of wonder and opportunity. His newspaper advertisements specifically target this demographic, offering affordable accommodations within walking distance of the fairgrounds. The hotel's location isn't accidental, it's been carefully chosen to attract exactly the sort of guests Holmes prefers. Close enough to the fair to draw visitors, far enough from the main tourist areas to avoid excessive scrutiny from law enforcement. The neighbourhood provides the perfect balance of accessibility and anonymity that makes his business possible. Mrs. Pitezel produces a photograph album that makes your blood run cold. Page after page of formal portraits, young women in their best dresses, men in carefully pressed suits, all posed with the stiff formality common to 1890s photography. These are Holmes's previous guests, she explains, documentation maintained for insurance and identification purposes. Each photograph includes detailed notes about the individual's background, financial circumstances, and ultimate fate. The bureaucratic precision of the record-keeping transforms mass murder into something resembling inventory management. Names, dates, methods of disposal, final disposition of remains, all catalogued with the same attention to detail any successful business applies to its operations. Holmes is particularly proud of his customer service protocols. Victims are treated well during their stay, fed properly, given comfortable accommodations, maintained in good spirits until the final moment. This approach, he explains, ensures cooperation and reduces the risk of disturbances that might attract unwanted attention from other guests or neighbours. The psychological manipulation involved is sophisticated and calculated. Holmes studies each victim's personality and preferences, tailoring his approach to maximise trust and minimise suspicion. Some guests receive the charming businessman treatment, others respond better to fatherly concern, still others prefer romantic attention. He's become a master of human psychology applied to predatory purposes. Mrs. Pitezel suggests several improvements to the operation's efficiency. The processing schedule could be accelerated, she notes, reducing overhead costs and increasing throughput. Additional partnerships with medical schools would create more revenue streams. Perhaps most chillingly, she recommends expanding the target demographic to include families travelling together. Children, she points out, command premium prices from certain specialised customers. As they prepare to leave, Holmes and Mrs. Pitezel discuss upcoming business travel. She'll be visiting Philadelphia to establish relationships with medical schools there, while Holmes plans a trip to New York to scout locations for a second facility. The casual way they discuss expanding their murder business across multiple cities reveals the true scope of their ambitions. You realise you're witnessing something unprecedented in criminal history, the transformation of murder from individual violence into organised enterprise. In an age when American businesses are conquering global markets through innovation and efficiency, Holmes has applied those same principles to create something monstrous, industrialized death disguised as entrepreneurial success. But the sixth day brings a new horror as Holmes introduces you to his filing system, cabinets full of meticulously organised records that document every aspect of his murder business with the precision of a railroad timetable. Each victim receives their own folder containing photographs, personal information, insurance documentation, and detailed notes about their psychological profile and preferred disposal method. Holmes opens one file at random to demonstrate his record-keeping system. The folder belongs to a young teacher from Minnesota named Sarah Patterson, who stayed at the hotel 3 months ago. Her photograph shows a bright-faced woman in her 20s, dressed in her finest travelling clothes. The accompanying documentation charts her transformation from hopeful tourist to processed inventory with bureaucratic efficiency. The file contains Sarah's original hotel registration, copies of her insurance policies. Holmes somehow obtained these within hours of her arrival, detailed physical measurements and psychological assessments based on conversations recorded through his hidden listening devices. There's even a transcript of her final letter home, which she'd written but never had the chance to send. Most disturbing is the business correspondence related to Sarah's case. Letters from medical schools inquiring about specimen availability, shipping arrangements for her remains, invoices for services rendered, and payment confirmations. Her murder has generated a paper trail that would make any accountant proud. Complete documentation of the transformation of human life into commercial transaction. Holmes explains his classification system with obvious pride. Victims are categorized by age, gender, physical condition, and estimated market value. Premium specimens like yourself are marked with red folders and receive special handling throughout the process. Standard inventory uses blue folders, while damaged goods, individuals with health problems or other issues that reduce their commercial value, are marked with yellow. The filing system extends to every aspect of the hotel's operations. Guest preferences are documented and cross-referenced to optimize future targeting strategies. Successful disposal methods are catalogued for replication. Even the hotel's legitimate business activities are carefully tracked to maintain the appearance of normal commercial operations for tax and legal purposes. Mrs. Pitezel returns with an update on the insurance fraud aspects of the business. Several death benefits have been processed successfully, generating thousands of dollars in additional revenue. The key, she explains, is selecting victims with policies large enough to justify the effort, but not so substantial as to trigger detailed investigations by insurance companies. Holmes demonstrates his customer relationship management approach by reviewing files from recent guests. Each victim received personalized attention designed to build trust and encourage compliance. Lonely travelers got friendship and companionship. Ambitious young people received promises of business opportunities. Religious visitors found Holmes surprisingly knowledgeable about scripture and theology. The psychological profiles in each file reveal Holmes's sophisticated understanding of human nature. He identifies vulnerable individuals through careful conversation, then exploits their weaknesses with practiced precision. Fear of poverty, desire for romance, homesickness, professional ambition, every human emotion becomes a tool for manipulation in his hands. Perhaps most chilling is Holmes's analysis of law enforcement responses to previous disappearances. He maintains detailed records of police investigations, noting which circumstances trigger intensive searches and which disappearances are written off as voluntary departures. This information helps him refine his victim selection criteria to minimize legal risks. The business correspondence in each file reveals the extent of Holmes's criminal network. Letters from corrupt officials, medical schools, insurance companies, and various other partners in his enterprise. The World's Fair Hotel sits at the center of a web of illegal activities that extends across multiple states and involves dozens of accomplices. Holmes shows you a ledger book that summarizes the hotel's financial performance over the past 2 years. The numbers are staggering. His murder business has generated more profit than most legitimate enterprises could dream of achieving. Insurance fraud, specimen sales, theft of personal effects, and various other revenue streams combine to create an incredibly lucrative piece of criminal operation. As he closes the files and returns them to their proper places in his cabinet, Holmes turns to you with that familiar, chilling smile. Organization is the key to any successful enterprise, he observes. Without proper record-keeping, business becomes chaos. The idea that mass murder can be reduced to filing and bookkeeping makes everything infinitely more terrifying than simple violence. Your 7th morning in the World's Fair Hotel brings the most horrifying revelation yet. Holmes arrives with what appears to be a detailed operations manual, a bound volume that outlines every step of his murder process, with the systematic precision of a factory floor supervisor's handbook. The title page reads, "Efficient Human Resource Processing, a Practical Guide," in elegant script that wouldn't look out of place on any business document. The manual is divided into chapters covering each stage of operations, from initial customer acquisition through final disposal. Holmes flips through the pages with obvious pride, pointing out innovations he's developed to streamline the process and maximize efficiency. Charts, diagrams, and detailed procedures transform murder into something resembling industrial manufacturing. Chapter 1 covers victim identification and selection. Holmes has developed a sophisticated screening process that evaluates potential targets based on multiple criteria: financial assets, family connections, travel patterns, psychological vulnerabilities. The goal is identifying individuals whose disappearance will generate maximum profit, while creating minimum risk of investigation. The customer service protocols outlined in Chapter 2 reveal the psychological sophistication of Holmes's operation. Each victim type requires different handling. Lonely travellers need friendship and attention. Ambitious young people respond to promises of opportunity. Religious individuals are drawn to spiritual discussions. Holmes has created detailed scripts for building trust and maintaining cooperation throughout the process. Chapter 3 details the physical infrastructure required for efficient operations: room configurations, ventilation systems, soundproofing requirements, disposal equipment. Every aspect of the murder factory is documented with engineering precision. The manual includes architectural drawings that could be used to replicate Holmes's methods in other locations. Holmes is particularly proud of the quality control procedures outlined in Chapter 4. Each step of the murder process includes checkpoints to ensure consistency and prevent errors that might compromise the operation. Victims are monitored continuously, their physical and psychological condition assessed regularly, adjustments made to protocols based on individual responses. The processing schedule detailed in Chapter 5 treats human murder with the same systematic approach factories apply to manufactured goods. Victims are moved through a series of stages: initial assessment, conditioning period, final processing, disposal, with precise timing designed to maximize throughput while maintaining quality standards. Chapter 6 covers the commercial applications of processed inventory. Medical schools receive properly preserved specimens with complete documentation. Insurance companies process death benefit claims supported by official paperwork. Personal effects are catalogued and sold through established networks of buyers who don't ask uncomfortable questions about provenance. Holmes explains the financial management principles outlined in Chapter 7. Revenue tracking, cost analysis, profit optimization. His murder business applies the same accounting standards expected of any legitimate enterprise. The manual includes budget projection and growth strategies that would impress any bank examiner or business investor. The quality assurance protocols in Chapter 8 ensure consistent results across all aspects of operations: regular equipment maintenance, staff training programs, customer feedback analysis. Holmes has created systems that guarantee reliable performance even as the business scales to handle larger volumes. Chapter 9 addresses risk management and legal compliance, strategies for avoiding law, enforcement attention, maintaining plausible deniability, managing corrupt officials, and handling unexpected complications. Holmes has anticipated virtually every scenario that might threaten his operations and developed appropriate responses. The final chapter outlines expansion plans and market opportunities. Holmes envisions a network of similar facilities in major cities across America, each following standardized procedures that ensure consistent quality and maximum profitability. The manual serves as a franchise guide for industrialized murder on a national scale. As Holmes closes the manual and prepares to leave, he turns to you with that familiar expression of professional pride. "I've been considering the publication, he mentions casually. There's clearly a market for this type of innovative business guidance. The idea that he might share his murder methods with other entrepreneurs creates a vision of American capitalism turned monstrous, a country where human disposal becomes just another industry. You realise you've witnessed something unprecedented in criminal history, the complete systematization of murder. In an age when American businesses are revolutionizing everything from steel production to meat processing, Holmes has applied those same principles to create the world's first murder factory. Progress, efficiency and innovation, the very values that built modern America, have been perverted to create something unthinkably evil. On the 8th morning of your captivity, Holmes arrives carrying what appears to be a presentation portfolio, the kind ambitious businessmen use when pitching investors or seeking bank loans. He spreads charts and graphs across your writing desk with the enthusiasm of an entrepreneur demonstrating market opportunities to potential partners. What you see makes your stomach clench with horror. Detailed demographic analysis of murder victims treated as consumer market research. The first chart shows victim acquisition data broken down by source. Newspaper advertisements account for 60% of customers, with the World's Fair Hotel's proximity to the exposition providing a steady stream of out-of-town visitors. Train station recruiting generates another 25%. Holmes employs agents who identify vulnerable travellers and direct them to his establishment. The remaining 15% comes from referrals and repeat customers, though Holmes doesn't elaborate on what he means by repeat business. Holmes points to a second chart tracking seasonal variations in victim availability. Summer months show peak activity due to World's Fair tourism, with July and August providing optimal hunting conditions. Spring and fall offer moderate opportunities, while winter presents challenges due to reduced travel and increased law enforcement attention. He's planning to expand operations to warmer climates during slow seasons. The demographic breakdowns reveal Holmes's sophisticated understanding of his target market. Young women aged 18 to 30 represent his preferred customer segment. They carry valuable insurance policies, possess marketable personal effects, and generate premium prices from medical schools. Male victims are processed primarily for insurance fraud, while children serve specialized markets Holmes doesn't discuss in detail. Geographic analysis shows victims drawn from across the Midwest, with concentrations from rural areas where disappearances attract less immediate attention. Holmes has identified specific regions, small farming communities, frontier towns, places where ambitious young people leave home seeking opportunity in the big city. His recruitment strategies specifically target individuals making major life transitions. The financial data is presented with the same professional precision any legitimate business might use to demonstrate profitability to investors. Average revenue per victim ranges from $800 to $3,000 depending on insurance policies, personal assets, and specimen quality. Operating costs include facility maintenance, staff wages, and various overhead expenses that Holmes tracks with accounting precision. Holmes explains his pricing strategy for different market segments. Premium specimens, young healthy individuals with clean medical histories, command top dollar from prestigious medical schools. Standard inventory serves regional institutions with smaller budgets. Damaged goods are processed through less discriminating channels or simply disposed of efficiently to minimize storage costs. Customer satisfaction metrics reveal Holmes's attention to service quality even in his murder business. Victims rate their experiences highly during initial accommodation periods, with many writing positive letters home before their final processing. This feedback helps Holmes refine his hospitality protocols to maintain the cooperative atmosphere essential for efficient operations. The competitive analysis section examines other criminal enterprises in the Chicago area. Traditional murderers, Holmes argues, fail to maximize revenue opportunities by focusing solely on robbery or passion-driven violence. His business model demonstrates superior return on investment through systematic exploitation of multiple income streams from each victim. Market expansion opportunities fill several pages of Holmes's presentation. New York offers tremendous growth potential given its immigrant population and medical school concentration. California's gold rush wealth creates attractive targets, while the South's agricultural prosperity suggests underexploited markets. Holmes has identified dozens of cities where similar operations could prove profitable. Supply chain management receives detailed attention in Holmes's analysis. Victim acquisition, processing, and disposal must be coordinated precisely to maintain operational efficiency. Bottlenecks in any stage reduce overall throughput and profitability. Holmes has developed systems to ensure smooth workflow from initial customer contact through final disposition of remains. Risk assessment charts document potential threats to business continuity. Law enforcement investigations pose the greatest danger, followed by insurance company fraud detection and medical school compliance audits. Holmes has developed contingency plans for each scenario, including escape routes, evidence disposal procedures, and alternative identity documentation. The presentation concludes with financial projections showing exponential growth potential over the next 5 years. With proper capitalization and systematic expansion, Holmes believes his murder business could become one of America's most profitable enterprises. The casual way he discusses industrialized killing as an investment opportunity makes everything infinitely more horrifying than simple violence. As Holmes packs away his charts and graphs, he turns to you with obvious satisfaction. "I trust you appreciate the sophistication of modern American enterprise," he says. "This isn't mere crime, it's the future of business applied to humanity's oldest profession." His pride in transforming murder into commerce encapsulates everything terrifying about the Gilded Age's worship of profit and efficiency. The ninth day brings visitors who transform your understanding of Holmes's operation from isolated criminal enterprise to complex business network. 3 men in expensive suits examine his facility with the analytical attention of investors evaluating a manufacturing plant. Their conversation reveals that the World's Fair Hotel sits at the center of a supply chain that extends across multiple states and involves dozens of criminal partners. Mr. Quinlan, introduced as Holmes's shipping coordinator, manages the logistics of specimen delivery to medical schools throughout the Midwest. He carries detailed schedules showing pickup dates, transportation methods, and delivery confirmations for processed inventory. The casualness with which he discusses shipping human remains makes clear this isn't his first involvement in the murder business. The transportation network Quinlan has established rivals anything legitimate businesses have created. Railroad connections move specimens to customers in Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Steamboat routes serve institutions along the Great Lakes. Even wagon trains carry specially packaged inventory to remote medical schools that can't be reached by the modern transportation methods. Dr. Holton, the second visitor, represents what Holmes calls his quality assurance division. Medical schools demand specimens that meet specific educational requirements, complete organ systems, minimal decomposition, proper preservation techniques. Holton's expertise ensures that processed inventory maintains commercial value throughout the distribution network. The preservation methods Holton describes transform murder into something approaching food processing. Chemical treatments, refrigeration techniques, or specialized packaging, every aspect has been optimized to maintain product quality during extended shipping periods. Holmes has invested thousands of dollars in equipment that allows him to compete with legitimate medical supply companies. Holton explains the grading system used to classify specimens for different markets. Grade A inventory serves prestigious institutions that pay premium prices for perfect specimens. Grade B products go to regional medical schools with smaller budgets. Grade C materials are sold to veterinary colleges or processed for other uses that Holton doesn't describe in detail. The third visitor, Mr. Howe, manages what Holmes euphemistically calls his insurance services division. The life insurance industry is expanding rapidly across America, creating opportunities for entrepreneurs willing to exploit system weaknesses. Howe has developed techniques for identifying high-value policies and expediting claims processing after convenient deaths. Howe's operation extends far beyond simple fraud. He maintains relationships with corrupt officials in multiple states who provide death certificates without asking uncomfortable questions. Insurance agents receive commissions for steering valuable clients toward Holmes's establishment. Even undertakers participate in the network by confirming deaths and handling burial arrangements. The conversation turns to territory management and market allocation. Holmes's partners have divided the Midwest into exclusive regions where each operates without interference from others. Chicago serves as headquarters due to its transportation advantages and World's Fair tourist traffic, but similar operations are planned for Detroit, Cleveland, St. Louis, and other major cities. Quality control protocols ensure consistency across the entire network. Standardized processing procedures, uniform documentation requirements, coordinated pricing strategies, Holmes has created systems that guarantee reliable service regardless of which facility handles specific customers. The murder business has achieved economies of scale that would impress any legitimate industry. Financial arrangements between partners reveal the sophisticated profit-sharing agreements that hold the network together. Holmes receives a percentage of revenues from affiliated operations, while his partners pay licensing fees for access to his methods and customer base. It's franchise capitalism applied to industrialized murder. Customer relationship management extends across the entire supply chain. Medical schools receive personalized service tailored to their specific needs. Insurance companies are managed carefully to maintain profitable relationships without triggering fraud investigations. Even law enforcement officials receive appropriate considerations to ensure their cooperation with the network operations. Visitors spend hours examining Holmes's facilities and procedures, taking detailed notes that will be used to replicate his methods in other locations. By the time they prepare to leave, they've essentially completed a comprehensive audit of the world's first murder factory, documentation that will allow them to establish similar operations throughout the American Midwest. Holmes walks his guests to the lobby with the same courtesy he shows legitimate business partners. Handshakes, promises to maintain regular communication, agreements about future meetings, all the rituals of successful commercial relationships applied to a criminal enterprise that transforms human beings into the processed inventory. As Holmes returns to your room after seeing off his visitors, he's practically glowing with entrepreneurial pride. You've witnessed history in the making, he tells you. The birth of America's first truly modern criminal enterprise. The idea that industrialized murder represents progress makes everything infinitely more terrifying than simple violence. Your 10th morning in captivity brings Holmes's most chilling revelation yet, a comprehensive quality control manual that treats human murder with the same systematic attention to detail that America's growing industries apply to steel production or meat processing. The leather-bound volume contains charts, graphs, and detailed procedures that transform killing into something resembling scientific manufacturing. Holmes opens to a section titled Specimen Quality Standards that reads like something from a medical textbook. Age ranges, physical condition requirements, preservation protocols, every aspect of human anatomy is evaluated according to commercial value. Young, healthy victims receive Grade A classification and command premium pricing. Older or damaged inventory gets processed through less discriminating channels. The performance metrics Holmes has developed would make any factory manager proud. Processing time from initial acquisition to final disposal averages 72 hours, with efficiency improvements reducing this to 48 hours for routine cases. Waste reduction protocols ensure maximum utilization of every aspect of processed inventory. Nothing goes unused if it has commercial value. Customer satisfaction surveys reveal Holmes's attention to service quality even within his murder business. Medical schools rate specimen condition, packaging quality, delivery timeliness, and documentation accuracy. The feedback helps Holmes refine his procedures to maintain competitive advantages over traditional body suppliers who rely on grave robbing and other crude methods. Holmes demonstrates his inventory tracking system with obvious pride. Each victim receives a unique identification number that follows them through every stage of processing. Location codes, condition assessments, scheduled processing dates, final disposition records. The bureaucratic precision rivals anything legitimate businesses have created. The quality assurance protocols include regular equipment maintenance, staff training programs, and systematic procedure reviews. Holmes has identified potential failure points throughout his operation and developed preventive measures to ensure consistent results. Even murder, it seems, benefits from modern management techniques. Statistical analysis reveals trends in victim demographics, processing efficiency, and revenue generation over time. Holmes has identified seasonal patterns, demographic preferences, and market opportunities that allow him to optimize operations for maximum profitability. Data-driven decision-making applied to industrialized killing. Holmes explains his staff management philosophy with the same enthusiasm any successful businessman might discuss human resources, employee training, performance evaluation, incentive compensation. His murder factory operates with professional standards that would be impressive in any legitimate enterprise. Workers receive bonuses for efficiency improvements and quality achievements. The continuous improvement program Holmes has implemented treats murder as a process that can be refined and optimized over time. Employee suggestions, customer feedback, and performance data drive systematic enhancements to procedures. What started as crude killing has evolved into sophisticated manufacturing through careful analysis and methodical refinement. Risk management protocols address every threat to business continuity Holmes has identified. Law enforcement investigations, insurance fraud detection, medical school compliance audits, equipment failures, contingency plans exist for every scenario that might disrupt operations. The level of preparation rivals what military organizations develop for complex campaigns. Financial performance tracking includes detailed cost analysis that would satisfy any bank examiner or business investor. Revenue per victim, processing costs, overhead allocation, profit margins. Holmes maintains accounting standards that demonstrate the commercial viability of systematized murder. The numbers prove that killing can be incredibly profitable when properly organized. Holmes shows you his research and development initiatives with obvious excitement. New preservation techniques, improved disposal methods, enhanced customer acquisition strategies. He's constantly working to advance the state-of-the-art in commercial murder. Innovation drives progress even in humanity's oldest crime. The benchmarking section compares Holmes's operation to criminal enterprises in other cities, revealing his competitive advantages over less sophisticated murderers. Processing efficiency, revenue generation, risk management, customer satisfaction. Holmes consistently outperforms traditional criminals who lack systematic approaches to their work. As Holmes closes the quality manual and prepares to leave, he turns to you with the satisfaction of any successful entrepreneur discussing business achievements. Continuous improvement is the key to sustainable success, he observes. Even murder benefits from professional management. The casual way he applies business principles to mass killing encapsulates everything horrifying about American capitalism's worship of efficiency and profit. You realize you're no longer just a victim of a serial killer. You've become raw material in the world's first industrialized murder operation, a business model that transforms human lives into medical supplies with the same efficiency other factories turn cattle into beef or lumber into furniture. In the land of the free and the home of the brave, entrepreneurial spirit has created a monster. The grandfather clock strikes midnight, its bronze chimes vibrating through the building's bones like a funeral bell. From somewhere in the depths below comes the sound of machinery starting up, the steady rhythm of pulleys and counterweights, the whisper of gas flowing through hidden pipes, the mechanical breathing of Holmes's perfect murder machine preparing for another night's work. Your 11th morning brings an unexpected visitor, not Holmes this time, but a thin man in a dark coat who examines the building's gas lines with the methodical attention of a factory inspector. Through your keyhole, you watch him test valve connections and adjust pressure settings with practiced efficiency. This is the final piece of Holmes's operation, the moment when all his careful planning transforms into lethal reality. The basement of the World's Fair Hotel reveals itself as the crown jewel of Holmes's murderous innovation. Unlike the elegant rooms above, this level makes no pretense of hospitality. It's pure function over form, a collection of chambers as designed for the efficient processing of human remains. The walls are lined with white tile, easily cleaned and sanitized. Gas pipes run along the ceiling like arteries in some monstrous organism, ready to deliver death to any room in the building at the turn of a valve. Holmes's laboratory occupies the central space, equipped with the same precision instruments you might find in any modern medical facility. Dissection tables crafted from marble and steel, chemical baths for tissue preservation, specialized furnaces for reducing organic matter to ash when complete disposal becomes necessary. Every surface gleams under electric lighting, creating an atmosphere that's simultaneously clinical and deeply unsettling. The preservation methods Holmes has perfected rival anything legitimate medical suppliers could offer. His chemical treatments maintain specimen quality during extended shipping periods, while his documentation systems ensure that each processed individual generates maximum revenue across multiple markets. It's supply chain management applied to human murder, with quality control standards that would impress any factory supervisor. Dr. Chappell returns with updated delivery schedules from medical schools across the Midwest. The demand has grown so consistent that Holmes now operates according to production quotas, specific numbers of specimens needed to meet quarterly commitments. Your stomach lurches as you realise you're not just facing death, but scheduled towards death. Time to meet the educational needs of future doctors. The financial arrangements are equally systematic. Medical schools pay premium prices for quality specimens delivered with proper documentation and preservation. Holmes has negotiated exclusive contracts that guarantee steady income regardless of seasonal variations in victim availability. Even murder, it seems, benefits from long-term business planning and customer relationship management. Holmes demonstrates his quality assurance procedures with obvious pride. Each victim undergoes thorough examination before processing to ensure they meet medical school requirements. Physical defects or diseases that might reduce educational value are carefully documented. Premium specimens command the highest prices from the most prestigious institutions, while damaged inventory gets processed through less discriminating channels. The conversation turns to Holmes's expansion plans. Similar operations could be profitable in other major cities where medical education is growing rapidly. New York's medical schools are particularly underserved, Dr. Chappell notes, and would pay substantial premiums for reliable specimen suppliers. The prospect of a nationwide network of murder-for-medical supply operations makes your blood run cold. Perhaps most horrifying is the casual way they discuss their work as a public service. Medical education requires cadavers, they argue, and their operation ensures that demand is met efficiently. The alternative, shortages that limit medical training, would ultimately cost more lives than their business claims. They've convinced themselves that mass murder serves the greater good of advancing medical science. As you listen to their business-like discussion of processing schedules and delivery requirements, you understand that you've stumbled into something unprecedented in criminal history. Holmes hasn't just created a murder factory. He's established a template for industrialized killing that could be replicated anywhere ambitious entrepreneurs recognize the profit potential in human disposal. The mechanical sounds from the basement grow louder as a night falls, the steady rhythm of Holmes' murder machine preparing for another efficient night of work. The 12th day brings a demonstration you'll never forget, though you desperately wish you could. Holmes arrives with what appears to be a technical manual, bound in leather and filled with detailed diagrams showing the building's gas delivery system. He spreads the pages across your writing desk like an engineer explaining a new industrial process, which in many ways, this is. The ventilation system you've been smelling for. Days reveals its true purpose as Holmes traces the network of pipes that honeycomb the building's walls. Every room can be sealed and flooded with gas at the turn of a valve, transforming guest accommodations into execution chambers with mechanical precision. The sweet medicinal odour you've been detecting isn't just seeping through the walls, it's been deliberately pumped into your room through hidden nozzles concealed behind the decorative mouldings. Holmes explains the process with the clinical detachment of any skilled technician. Victims are maintained in comfort until the optimal moment, then gas is introduced gradually to minimise distress and ensure clean, efficient disposal. The system allows for precise control of timing and dosage, ensuring consistent results while minimising waste. Even the method of murder has been refined through careful analysis and systematic improvement. This gas Holmes employs isn't the crude poison you might expect from a desperate killer. Instead, he's developed a sophisticated mixture that renders victims unconscious quickly while preserving tissue quality for his medical school customers. The formula represents years of experimentation and refinement, another example of American innovation applied to humanity's oldest crime. Quality control extends even to the final moments of victims' lives. Holmes monitors each processing session through hidden observation ports, documenting reaction times and adjusting procedures based on individual responses. The data helps him optimize the system for maximum efficiency while maintaining the specimen quality that commands premium prices from medical institutions. The mechanical precision of the murder process transforms killing into something resembling factory production. Victims move through a series of stages: initial assessment, conditioning period, final processing, with precise timing designed to maximize throughput while maintaining quality standards. It's assembly line manufacturing applied to human death, complete with performance metrics and continuous improvement protocols. Holmes demonstrates the safety features built into his gas chamber system. Automatic timers prevent overexposure that might damage specimens, while ventilation controls ensure rapid clearing between processing sessions. Even the disposal of human life has been engineered with fail-safes and backup procedures that would satisfy any industrial safety inspector. The documentation requirements for each gas chamber session reflect Holmes's business-oriented approach to murder. Time logs, dosage records, victim responses, final condition assessments. Every aspect gets catalogued with the same precision legitimate businesses apply to manufacturing process. The bureaucracy of death rivals anything government agencies have created. Storage and handling procedures for the gas supply demonstrate Holmes's attention to operational security. Chemical stocks are rotated regularly to maintain potency, while delivery systems undergo routine maintenance to prevent leaks or equipment failures that might compromise processing schedules. Even his murder weapon receives the same careful management applied to any critical business asset. Holmes shows you testimonials from medical school customers praising the quality of his preserved specimens. Consistent tissue condition, complete documentation, reliable delivery schedules. His gas chamber protocol has earned recognition throughout the academic medical community. The irony that mass murder has improved medical education isn't lost on you as you read these professional endorsements. As Holmes packs away his technical manuals and prepares to leave, he pauses at your door with that familiar expression of entrepreneurial satisfaction. Efficiency is the hallmark of any successful operation, he observes. Even death benefits from proper engineering. The casual way he discusses systematic murder as a technical achievement encapsulates everything terrifying about the Gilded Age's worship of progress and innovation. The gas continues to seep through your room's ventilation system, growing stronger as the night progresses, and Holmes prepares to demonstrate the culmination of his murderous innovation. Your 13th and final morning in the World's Fair Hotel arrives with the sound of Holmes conducting what he calls his quarterly inventory assessment. Through the thin walls, you hear him moving from room to room with the systematic precision of any warehouse manager, checking on his stock levels and processing schedules. The realization that you've become inventory in his murder business makes everything infinitely more horrifying than simple death. The ledger Holmes carries contains entries for every guest who has stayed at his hotel over the past 2 years. Names, arrival dates, processing methods, final disposition. The bureaucratic precision transforms a mass murder into something resembling routine business administration. Your own entry appears near the bottom of the current page, marked with notations about your physical condition and estimated market value. Holmes explains his inventory rotation system with obvious pride. Peak processing periods coincide with medical school semesters, ensuring steady demand for his products throughout the academic year. Summer sessions handle overflow from spring processing, while winter months allow for equipment maintenance and facility upgrades. Even murder, it seems, operates according to seasonal business cycles. The conversation reveals the full scope of Holmes's criminal network. Partnerships with corrupt officials provide death certificates without investigation, while relationships with transportation companies ensure discreet specimen delivery across multiple states. Insurance agents steer high-value clients toward his establishment, earning commissions for their referrals. The World's Fair Hotel sits at the center of a web of illegals, activities that generates profits through systematic exploitation of human life. Quality metrics demonstrate the sophistication of Holmes's murder factory. Processing time from initial acquisition to final disposal averages 68 hours, with efficiency improvements reducing this to 48 hours for routine cases. Customer satisfaction surveys from medical schools rate his specimens consistently higher than competitors who rely on traditional grave robbing and body snatching methods. Holmes shows you his research and development initiatives with obvious excitement. New preservation techniques under testing promise to extend specimen shelf life while reducing chemical costs. Improved disposal methods eliminate waste and streamline cleanup procedures. Enhanced customer acquisition strategies target demographics most likely to generate premium pricing from specialized markets. The expansion plans Holmes outlines paint a vision of industrialized murder spreading across America. Similar facilities in New York, Philadelphia, and San Francisco could serve regional medical school networks while maintaining the quality standards that made his Chicago operation so profitable. The manual he's developed serves as a franchise guide for entrepreneurs interested in entering the human disposal business. Financial projections show exponential growth potential over the next 5 years. With proper capitalization and systematic expansion, Holmes believes his murder business could become one of America's most profitable enterprises. The casual way he discusses killing people for money as an investment opportunity makes everything infinitely more terrifying than simple violence. Holmes demonstrates his final processing checklist with the same professionalism any factory supervisor might show when explaining quality control procedures. Victim condition assessment, gas chamber preparation, specimen preservation, documentation completion, disposal arrangements, every step receives the same systematic attention applied to the legitimate manufacturing process. As Holmes completes his inventory assessment and prepares for your final processing session, he turns to you with that familiar smile of entrepreneurial satisfaction. "You've been an excellent addition to our operation," he says with genuine warmth. "Your cooperation has made everything so much more efficient." The casual way he thanks you for making your own murder easier encapsulates everything horrifying about his systematic approach to killing. The grandfather clock chimes 13 times, an impossible number that seems fitting for this place where normal rules don't apply. Outside your sealed windows, Chicago continues its celebration of progress and innovation, unaware that just blocks away, those same American values have been perverted to create something unthinkably evil. The sounds that wake you on what you don't yet know will be your final morning aren't the usual mechanical breathing of Holmes's murder factory. Instead, you hear unfamiliar voices in the hallway, authoritative and urgent, accompanied by the heavy footsteps of men who aren't trying to move quietly. Through your keyhole you glimpse unfamiliar faces, police detectives and insurance investigators whose presence suggests that Holmes's carefully constructed business empire may finally be crumbling. Detective Frank Geyer arrives at the World's Fair Hotel carrying files thick with missing person reports from across the Midwest. Young women who came to Chicago for the World's Fair and simply vanished, leaving behind only forwarding addresses that lead to Holmes's establishment. The pattern is too consistent to be coincidental, too systematic to be random crime. Guyer's investigation reveals the scope of Holmes's operation in ways that even you hadn't fully comprehended. The insurance fraud investigation provides the key that unlocks Holmes's entire criminal network. Claims for death benefits that coincidentally involve guests at the World's Fair Hotel, all supported by documentation from the same corrupt officials, all processed through the same network of accomplices. The money trail leads investigators directly to Holmes's various business interests and reveals the financial motivation behind his systematic murders. Holmes's behavior during the initial questioning reveals cracks in his usually perfect composure. The charming businessman persona that fooled so many victims begins to slip as investigators present evidence of his activities. His explanations for the building's unusual architecture become increasingly desperate, his justifications for the gas lines and soundproof rooms more implausible with each attempt. The search of Holmes's office uncovers the business records you witness being maintained with such bureaucratic precision. Ledgers documenting victim processing, correspondence with medical schools, insurance fraud documentation, detailed architectural plans, all the evidence needed to prove that the World's Fair Hotel was designed and operated as a murder factory. The systematic nature of the crimes makes them even more shocking to investigators trained to handle individual acts of violence. Witness testimony from Holmes's business associates reveals the extent of his criminal network. Mrs. Peitzel's involvement in insurance fraud, Dr. Chappell's specimen procurement activities, various corrupt officials who provided false documentation. The investigation exposes a conspiracy that extends far beyond a single serial killer operating alone. Holmes has created America's first organized murder enterprise. The discovery of bodies in the hotel's basement confirms investigators' worst fears about Holmes's activities. Remains in various stages of processing, chemical equipment for specimen preservation, furnace facilities for complete disposal. The physical evidence validates every horrifying detail of Holmes's business model. The World's Fair Hotel isn't just a crime scene, it's a factory for the industrial production of death. Media coverage of the investigation transforms Holmes from successful businessman to national monster. Newspapers across the country publish details of his murder castle, his systematic killing methods, his cold-blooded exploitation of World's Fair visitors. The story captures public imagination in ways that individual murders never could, turning Holmes into America's first celebrity serial killer. Public reaction reveals the deeper horror of Holmes's crimes, not just that he killed people, but that he applied American business principles to make murder profitable. The The efficiency, the systematic approach, the quality control procedures, everything that made America's Industrial Revolution successful had been perverted to create something unspeakably evil. Holmes represents the dark side of American innovation and entrepreneurial spirit. As investigators continue gathering evidence, you realize that your ordeal is nearing its end. The murder factory that seemed so perfectly designed, so mechanically efficient, is being dismantled by the very legal system that Holmes thought he could manipulate. Justice moves slowly, but it moves with the same systematic precision that Holmes applied to his crimes. The investigation reveals that you weren't Holmes's final victim. You were simply the latest in a production schedule that treated human life as raw material for a profitable business. The knowledge that your death was planned as part of a quarterly processing quota makes everything even more horrifying, but also provides the evidence needed to ensure Holmes pays for his systematic approach to murder. The courtroom where Holmes faces judgment for his crimes becomes a theatre for America's first confrontation with industrialized murder. Packed galleries, rows of journalists, legal experts from across the nation, all gathered to witness the trial of a man who transformed killing from individual violence into systematic business enterprise. You watch from the witness gallery as evidence of Holmes's murder factory unfolds with bureaucratic precision. The prosecution's case reads like a business audit gone horribly wrong. Detailed financial records showing profits from insurance fraud, specimen sales and victim asset liquidation. Architectural plans revealing gas chambers disguised as hotel rooms. Correspondence with medical schools documenting the commercial market for processed human remains. Every piece of evidence demonstrates that Holmes approached murder with the same systematic efficiency other entrepreneurs applied to legitimate industries. Holmes's defense strategy reveals his continued belief that business principles justify any activity that generates profit. His attorneys argue that medical schools needed specimens, insurance companies accepted risk when writing policies, and market demand created opportunities for efficient supply solutions. The casual way they discuss mass murder as market response shows how completely Holmes had rationalized his crimes through commercial logic. Witness testimony from Holmes's business partners exposes the full scope of his criminal network. Mrs. Pitezel describes her role in insurance fraud coordination. Dr. Chappell explains the medical school procurement system. Various corrupt officials detail their participation in documentation falsification. The trial reveals that Holmes's operation involved dozens of accomplices across multiple states. Expert witnesses explain the technical sophistication of Holmes's murder methods. Engineers describe the gas delivery system's precision controls. Medical examiners detail the quality of specimen preservation techniques. Architects analyze the building's design for optimal victim processing and body disposal. The testimony demonstrates that Holmes had applied legitimate technical knowledge to create unprecedented criminal capabilities. The psychological evaluation of Holmes attempts to understand how American business culture could produce such a monster. Experts debate whether his systematic approach to murder represents insanity or simply the logical extension of profit-maximizing behavior. The question haunts the trial. Is Holmes a madman or the inevitable product of a society that values efficiency and profit above human life? Victim impact testimony provides the human cost of Holmes's business model. Family members describe loved ones who came to Chicago seeking opportunity and adventure, only to become raw material in Holmes's murder factory. The systematic nature of the crimes, the careful selection, the false hospitality, the efficient processing, makes the losses even more devastating than random violence would have been. The judge's instructions to the jury emphasize the unprecedented nature of Holmes's crimes. This isn't a case of passion or desperation, but systematic murder conducted for commercial profit. The application of business methods to mass killing represents a new category of criminal behavior that challenges traditional concepts of justice and punishment. How do you sentence someone who industrialized death itself? Media coverage of the trial transforms Holmes into America's first celebrity serial killer. Newspapers publish detailed accounts of his methods, his motives, his cold-blooded efficiency. The story captures public imagination because it reflects deeper fears about industrial society, the worry that progress and innovation might be creating monsters rather than marvels. The jury's verdict comes after minimal deliberation. Guilty on all counts, with aggravating factors that make Holmes eligible for capital punishment. The systematic nature of his crimes, the commercial motivation, the number of victims, everything combines to ensure that justice will be both swift and final. Holmes will pay for turning murder into a business with his own life. As the sentence is read, Holmes maintains the same calm demeanour he showed when conducting business meetings in your hotel room. Even facing death, he seems more concerned about his operation's profitability than the human cost of his crimes. The complete absence of remorse demonstrates that Holmes never stopped thinking like a businessman, even when that business was death. The trial's conclusion marks the end of America's first encounter with industrialized murder. Holmes will hang for his crimes, but the questions his case raises about American society, business ethics, and the dark side of innovation will echo through history long after his death. The execution of H. Holmes takes place on a grey Philadelphia morning in May 1806, bringing an end to America's first systematic murder enterprise. But as Holmes's body swings from the gallows, the implications of his crimes continue to reverberate through American society. The World's Fair Hotel stands empty now, its rooms sealed, its machinery silent, a monument to the dark side of American innovation and entrepreneurial spirit. The demolition of Holmes's murder castle becomes a public spectacle, drawing crowds who want to witness the destruction of America's first factory designed for human death. Workers tear apart the gas delivery systems, dismantle the soundproof chambers, and fill in the basement laboratory where so many victims met their end. Yet even as the physical structure disappears, the psychological impact of Holmes's crimes continues to haunt the American imagination. Legal scholars study Holmes's case for insights into how business methods might be perverted to criminal purposes. His systematic approach to murder, his quality control procedures, his customer relationship management, all the techniques that made American industry successful had been applied to create something unspeakably evil. The case forces a national conversation about whether pure profit motivation, unchecked by moral constraints, inevitably leads to monstrous outcomes. Law enforcement agencies across the country examine their procedures in light of Holmes's crimes. How did a murder factory operate for years without detection? What warning signs were missed? How can police departments better coordinate investigations across state lines? Holmes's systematic approach to killing exposed weaknesses in America's fragmented law enforcement system that criminals had been exploiting for decades. The medical schools that unknowingly purchased Holmes's victims face their own reckoning. How many anatomy lessons were conducted using the bodies of murder victims? How much medical education was built on systematic killing disguised as legitimate specimen supply? The scandal forces reforms in how medical institutions acquire cadavers, creating oversight systems designed to prevent future exploitation. Insurance companies implement new fraud detection procedures specifically designed to identify patterns like those Holmes exploited. Multiple policies on the same individual, convenient deaths shortly after policy issuance, documentation from the same networks of corrupt officials, all become red flags that trigger intensive investigation. Holmes's crimes forced the insurance industry to confront how their products might be weaponized by systematic criminals. Popular culture seizes on Holmes's story as a cautionary tale about unchecked capitalism and American business culture. Books, plays, and newspaper serials explore the implications of his crimes, asking whether the same entrepreneurial spirit that built America's industrial might could also create monsters. Holmes becomes a symbol of progress perverted, innovation turned evil, the American dream transformed into nightmare. The World's Fair itself takes on darker significance in light of Holmes's crimes. What was supposed to celebrate American achievement and progress also provided cover for systematic murder conducted with ruthless efficiency. The fair's gleaming white city and Holmes's murder castle become twin symbols of the Gilded Age, one representing America's highest aspirations, the other its darkest possibilities. Criminal justice reforms emerge from Holmes's case, including better coordination between local law enforcement agencies and improved procedures for tracking missing persons. The systematic nature of his crimes demonstrates that traditional policing methods, designed for individual acts of violence, are inadequate for addressing organized criminal enterprises that operate across multiple jurisdictions. Mental health professionals debate whether Holmes represents a new category of criminal psychology. His ability to compartmentalize business activities and mass murder, his complete lack of empathy for victims, his systematic approach to killing, all suggest pathologies that traditional insanity defenses couldn't address. Holmes forces American society to confront the possibility that some criminals are simply evil rather than mad. The empty lot where Holmes's murder castle once stood becomes an unofficial memorial to his victims. Families of the missing come to leave flowers, to pray, to seek closure for loved ones whose remains were never recovered. The site reminds Chicago that progress and innovation, unchecked by moral constraints, can create horrors as easily as wonders. As the 19th century draws to a close, Holmes's crimes serve as a dark coda to America's Gilded Age. The same entrepreneurial energy that built railroads, steel mills, and great fortunes also created the world's first murder factory. The case forces Americans to confront uncomfortable questions about their society's values and whether the worship of efficiency and profit might be creating monsters along with marvels. The legend of H.H. Holmes ensures that his story will outlive his crimes. Future generations will remember him not as a simple killer, but as the man who industrialized death itself. His murder castle becomes a symbol of how American innovation, applied without moral constraints, can transform even the most fundamental human crimes into systematic business enterprises. In the end, Holmes achieved a form of immortality he never intended. His name will be forever associated with America's first confrontation with industrialized evil, a reminder that progress and innovation are not inherently good. They are tools that can be used to create wonders or horrors, depending on the moral character of those who wield them. The World's Fair Hotel is gone, but its legacy lives on as a warning about the dark side of the American dream. This concludes our journey through the dark corridors of America's first murder hotel. Sleep well, knowing that the monster who turned killing into a business has long since paid for his crimes, and that justice, however delayed, eventually finds even the most systematic of evils.